Zoo, The Similars, All-Star Superman, I Feel Pretty and The Shawshank Redemption, all coming up next on the Movie Burner Blog Rundown. And as always, I'm joined here with John, and first up we're going to talk about this film that was reviewed by Philip Henry. John, this is a film that came out this year called Zoo.
Yes, it's directed by Colin McIver. It stars Toby Jones, Art Parkinson and Penelope Wilton. This is a Northern Irish film, Stephen. It's quite a small budget film. I believe I read an article about it because it did pique my interest when I read this review. It's a cracking review, incidentally. It was a £5 million budget film. It's based on the events of a true story. It's based all the way back in World War II, in the midst of the Luftwaffe raids on the British Isles. It's about a zoo in Belfast, and more specifically about an elephant which was getting helped to safety from the zoo. I don't know whether it's a loosely based adaptation on a true story, Stephen, or whether they've went and embellished it a little bit and took it into a more grandiose type setting. But I do believe in the review he says that children are hunting for this elephant that's missing. In the original true story, that it was really just a zookeeper that was taking the elephant back to her home every night after her work in the zoo. And yeah, but it's an interesting little concept, interesting story. It's just a shame it's not in a wider release. It's kind of been limited to Northern Ireland only. Philip does say in his review that he found it quite hard to find it. It's not a widespread release and that he had to pop along to his local cinema to see it. But I'd love to go and watch this film.
Yeah, one of the things that I picked up from this review, John, from Philip, was that these are the things you don't really think about going into a World War II movie. You know, we were fortunately not alive during this period in the history, and I could only describe it as sort of street level events, if you like. Normally when you see a World War II film, Philip mentions this in his review, it's either an air raid battle or it's set at sea or something like that. It's in the trenches. It's all the sort of usual cliches. This is more of the struggles at home, and it kind of does bring it all back home. The sort of situation that the everyday people were having to experience during this sad time in their history. The other thing that really impressed me about this film being such a locally made film is the cast. Yeah. Toby Jones for a kick-off. He's a fantastic actor. Mm-hmm. Famous for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I think he was in the Captain America film, the first one, the first Avenger. You've got Penelope Wilton in there as well, who was, I always associate her with playing Sean's mum in Shaun of the Dead. She was just perfect for that role. And then you've also got the likes of Art Parkinson as well. I know that you know him more from some of the films you've seen, John. But that was what I took from it, from such a independent film, small independent film made in Belfast. That cast is very impressive.
Yeah, that's one of the things I took away, Stephen, as soon as I looked into this film, because I didn't know about it prior to this, I can't lie. I'm Scottish, I don't know much about local Northern Irish made films. This is one of the benefits of having writers from these parts. They will introduce films like this to you. But yeah, one of the things I did take away from it was the cast as well. The likes of Penelope Wilton. She was in Pride and Prejudice as well. That was a film I was battered to death with my mother. She was in the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society film that we were discussing for all those weeks on the box office chat, Stephen. Then you've got the likes of Ian McLaughlin, who was in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, played General Dodonna. He's been in Game of Thrones as Barristan Selmy, obviously the Lannisters' right-hand man, if you like. And as you did say, Art Parkinson as well, who played Kubo in Kubo and the Two Strings. He was also in Game of Thrones as well. That's not really a big surprise that some of these people popping up in this local Northern Irish made film have starred in Game of Thrones, which of course does get filmed round about the Belfast area. They all go over there each year to film the Westeros settings. But yeah, I mean, as I did say, the film is intriguing. It's an intriguing concept. I'm a massive World War II buff, but what I always do enjoy is getting in and watching films based on characters or stories that I've never heard about. I did one recently, for instance, Sophie Shaw, which was based on a story I'd never heard about, round about the setting of World War II. Obviously about a young woman who was part of the resistance group, the White Rose. It was quite prominent in getting leaflets and propaganda out to the German people in the midst of the war. So I love little stories, unknown stories like this that pop up from time to time that you hear about that are more intimate and introspective in the midst of what was a global conflict. And as you did say, and as Phil says in his review, you do, when you get World War II films, you either get these more introspective films, the likes of Downfall, that focus on quieter moments, or you get the big blazing moments that focus on the big conflicts and the different theatres in the war. And I found it interesting that he says that some of the CGE used for the blitz scenes is better than some of the bigger budget films that are focused on World War II, and that's something that's always intrigued me as well. The fact that you do get these smaller made films, and they do the work magic with the budget they've got to produce an authentic period piece. And as I did say, I'd thoroughly enjoy a film like this, and I hope it pops up in something like Netflix, or maybe gets a small release in Glasgow at some point in the future, because I love World War II. I love the more introspective stories, and I'd be thoroughly up for giving this a watch. Just looking at the true story, it's a very intriguing true story that was adapted off of Stephen. It was based on Denise Weston Austen, who was referred to as the Elephant Angel. She rescued a young elephant from the zoo. As he does mention in his review, that the army were threatening to kill the animals. I do believe the Royal Ulster Constabulary shot dead 23 animals back in the day, so it's an interesting concept that they've adapted. They've obviously went and embellished slightly to turn into a kid's adventure story, but I'd give it a bash.
Yeah, certainly, John. If it becomes available, I think I'll be watching this as well. It does sound intriguing. The other thing as well is, the storyline, very surprised Disney haven't picked this up, because it's something that would be right down their street. If you probably take the RUC out of it and stuff like that, the things that happened, I think Disney could certainly pick that up. The director, Colin McKeever, I don't really know much of his work. I'm taking it he's an independent director. I know that he did, he worked on a video with the Cranberries, one of my favourite bands, I think it was about 6 years ago, on the promo video for the song Tomorrow. So I like the guy already. I know he did a couple of episodes of a TV series back maybe 6-7 years ago called The Spartaco Mystery, which I'm not too familiar with, but I certainly will look out for this film, see its availability. If it's maybe somewhere online that we can watch it, maybe YouTube or something like that, or maybe there is hard copies out there, possibly on DVD. But no, it's certainly one to look out for. And just moving on now, John, this is a second review here coming in from Philip. This is a film from 2015 called The Similars. Now, this is directed by Isaac Esben, and it was also written by him as well, and it stars Louis Alberti, Carmen Bito and Fernando Beccaril. Now, I think from that cast we can clearly see that this is, a Spanish type movie, possibly Mexican.
Yeah, it is. It's a Mexican film. Stephen Phillip does say it's a foreign language film, and it's got a very intriguing story going on about it. It's a very odd story where you've got 4 individuals, I believe, bunker in a bus stop, and there's this rain falling down, but they can't walk out because it's not normal rain. The rain's having an odd effect on people who are coming into contact with it. And he says it's a very interesting concept. I believe he watched it on Netflix. And he says it's fragmented with news reports throughout the film, really explaining what's going on with this rain. It's not H2O. And he goes on to say that the director, Isaac Esban, introduces each of the disparate travellers individually, weaving their story and their personal narrative into the main arc, whilst increasing the tension and the paranoia. This sounds again like it's right up my street. I've got a bit of a soft spot for a foreign language film. I've watched many in the past, most notably Land of Mine, which was a brilliant Denmark film, kind of again tying into what we were talking about previously, Stephen, a small, more introspective story based around the after events of World War II. I've also watched The Innocents and a few other foreign language films. Sophie Shaw, as I mentioned previously, I do like a foreign language film. You tend to find that because they are foreign language, they've got a slightly smaller budget, they have to work within tighter confines, and as a result it does improve the storytelling. I tend to find that in modern blockbuster films from Hollywood, because they have got such a big budget to work off of, they kind of go off their head and use the budget to fire it into CG and big effects and make it massive, when they're kind of forgetting the roots from the supposed golden age of Hollywood, where you did focus on the story more. You did have a big grand sets back then as well, but they focused more on the story, and that's what you get in these modern day foreign language films. And it sounds as though it's right up my street, and again, I'd give it a watch. If it's on Netflix, I probably will go and watch that tonight.
Yeah, you've only got to look at the likes of, the Doctor Who original series, John, those old ones where the storytelling was heavily relied on. Same as Star Trek, the original series as well. Yeah. When you're looking at certain budgets, and obviously the technology back then wasn't available that is now, you rely heavily on the writings. And I think that's what Philip's saying here. It is heavily inspired by The Twilight Zone. I used to watch The Twilight Zone with my gran. Fantastic series. Even the the modern ones that came out in the sort of 80s, 90s as well. Very fascinating, great storytelling. Also like the fact that the directors tried to give it that authentic look as well, with the old film stock footage and the old scratches and stuff like that being added in digitally. That can come across pretentious. It certainly did in one of my favourite films, Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino, where there's a lot of sort of screen jumps and that sort of scratchiness, and the sound quality as well deteriorated, but it was all set in modern times, and it kind of reeked of pretentiousness. And I'm a big Tarantino fan, but I just felt that it wasn't needed. In this case, I do think it is. And the other thing that I picked up as well from the review of the director Isaac Esban from Philip was that the storyline could have really fell flat and became really stupid. You've seen it with more prominent directors like M. Night Shyamalan, and you look at films like The Village, The Happening. There was another one as well, but I can't remember who directed it. The Mist, I think it was called. They all great potential, but they just didn't work. They became really silly, especially if you've ever seen The Happening. This is the one about the wind and the plants and stuff like that. It was ridiculous. But this chap Isaac Esban seems to have pulled it off here, according to Philip. I know this film is on Netflix here in the UK anyway, so it's certainly a film that I do want to see now after reading Philip's review. The other thing that I do like about it is I do like foreign language films, and I think it's great that they've got this platform that they can open up to a larger audience on the Netflix community, and I'll certainly be giving this a watch.
Yeah, I thoroughly share those sentiments, Stephen. Actually, the director for The Mist, which kind of connects into this film we're going to be discussing later in this show, Stephen. It's Frank Darabont of the Shawshank Redemption fame. I've never seen that film though, and just what you said, it's not one I'm going to go and watch anytime soon. But just looking at the visuals, as you did say, he touches upon the visuals, kind of being bleached of the colours with the odd distinctive colour popping in, and looking at some of the images of the film, that's very, very apparent. It almost looks like that sepia effect you can get on the likes of Instagram and on your phone and stuff like that. But it's really, really bleached of colour, and I suppose that probably add to the eeriness and paranoia of the story. But I've not got much more to add. I will go and watch this film. It looks an interesting concept. It's freaky. It's a strange concept, almost supernatural-esque with the rain coming down, and it's a foreign language film, so I'm always up for those.
Yeah, just moving on, John. This is a film that I actually reviewed last week. It's All-Star Superman from 2011. I'm just continuing my DC animated binge watch, and gladly picked up a copy of this. Find it very hard to come by some of these films at the moment, so my reviews are kind of being drip fed at the moment as I try and get my hands on some of these prized possessions, because they certainly are that. The collection's growing every week, and this film, All-Star Superman, was directed by Sam Liu, and the writer of this film, Dwayne McDuffie, this was actually his last film. He died actually the day before it came out. It was released, which is a shame. I think it was the day after his birthday as well. He was only 49, which, it's very sad to read that. It stars James Denton, Christina Hendricks and Anthony LaPaglia. And basically, the premise of this story is that Superman is dying from the sun's radiation. This is due to Lex Luthor's overdosing him with some solar radiation. Very early on in the film, first 5 minutes, this all happens. Superman knows he's dying, and he knows that Lex Luthor is responsible for this, and Superman's kind of got this bucket list. He wants to leave Earth in a better place than the one that he arrived in as an infant, and it's quite a good storyline. There is some bits in there that I just felt were unnecessary. There were scenes involving characters like Atlas and Samson, which was very strange. At times I thought I was watching a different movie. There was no real purpose for these characters, and some of the sequences kind of made the film look a bit more episodic than it should have been. The previous films that I've been watching feel like movies. Under the Red Hood certainly was one of the more recent ones I watched, and it felt like a movie. It felt like a film that would work well as live action. Sadly, this one doesn't. It doesn't mean it's not a good film, but apparently, it's adapted from the graphic novel by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. And as I said, it's got more of an episodic experience, and it's these scenes involving these characters, Atlas and Samson, that really kind of derails you a little bit from the storyline. But I digress. The film itself, the animation at times I felt was a little bit jolty. They couldn't really get into full flow with the whole fighting sequences and the action sequences. It felt a little bit jumpy at times, just the way it was animated. But apparently this is, it's based on these graphic novels, and they wanted to stay true to the look and feel of these graphic novels, so I could appreciate that. Anthony LaPaglia, he plays Lex Luthor. I know him from, he appeared in a little film called So I Married an Axe Murderer from 1993. He was Mike Myers, who played Charlie in that film, his friend. He was a cop guy. He's a very funny man. He's a great actor, but he played a good Lex Luthor. James Denton as well. He was okay. At times I felt his voice was a little monotone. It sounded a bit like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen, that kind of emotionless, cold sort of character. Didn't have really any cares for anyone or emotions for anyone, and it kind of came across as that. But when you realise that he's just realised that he's dying, you can understand where the character's coming from. So I think possibly that was deliberate on his part. Lois Lane, a superwoman, that was a kind of a surprise. At first I thought this could be naff, but actually it did serve the story well. She was more utilised better in this film than she has in previous animated films as well. She wasn't just a sort of sideshow. She actually had a part to play in this, a very prominent part at that. But it was a good film. I wouldn't recommend it to be your first film if you're just coming into this world of DC animated films, but I certainly would give it a chance once you've seen some of the other ones.
Yeah, I can't really add much more into what you've said, Stephen. You've done a sterling review of the film, both in written and on your descriptions you've just gave in this show as well. I was going to go into a little bit there about the writer, the guy who adapted it, Dwayne McDuffie, passing away, and how it could have been maybe him projecting his own mortality, impending mortality onto the story. But I've since done a bit of research and found that he died of complications from heart surgery, which is tragic. And it doesn't really come into what at the point I was going to make at all. So having had a little look at him, it seems that he was just like a guy who was thoroughly into comic books and wrote them and stuff like that. So he's clearly just been inspired by that story and wanting to adapt it into an animated film. But I've said it time and again, these animated stories, they do intrigue me because I'm a guy that's really into comic book stuff, comic book characters and stories. But I've never had a chance to really in and read the comic books themselves. And now there's such a massive array of comic books, it's very daunting to start somewhere. So this would be my in to gaining more knowledge on the stories and the characters that they also use to adapt into live action stuff. And another thing that always takes me aback is the sheer amount of actors and actresses they get on board. They do chop and change up some of the people that play these characters time and again. It all seems to meld itself together and work somehow. I see Christina Hendricks is in there. She's also a very famous actress, talented actress. And just the concept of Lex Luthor poisoning Superman, he's such a amazing supervillain, iconic supervillain, and seeing him popping up in the various different forms in all these different films you've reviewed over the last few months and stuff like that. Him coming in as the President of the United States one minute, next minute he's an arch villain like this. And just the concept of Superman as a character is one that's always intrigued me. He's an utterly iconic character. I thoroughly enjoy anything that involves him, be it the Christopher Reeve take on the character, the Henry Cavill, or even these animated ones. So at some point I'll get round to watching this. I'll probably nick all your collection, Stephen, and watch them one by one because I'm so cheap that I ain't going on to eBay to pay for them. So I'll just nick the ones off of you and watch them. But yeah, I mean, not got much more to add to it because I've never seen it. I can't come at this from any position of authority because I don't know about the story, the backstory, the comic books, how they adapted it, how it's been received by fans of the comic book. But all I will say is that I will get round to watching it. I love all these comic book characters and the stories that they've come up with through 50, 60 years, over the last 50, 60 years, and I will give it a bash at some point.
Yeah, just moving on now, John, to our next movie. This was one that D.M. Anderson reviewed a few days ago, called I Feel Pretty from 2018. This is obviously a film we've discussed on Box Office Chat from Amy Schumer. Now, before I hand it over to you, John, because I know you've got a lot to say on this anyway, but one thing that I did say about this film from its description was that it did remind me a lot of Shallow Hal. These things about beauty being in the inside and all that kind of thing, and there's a message within the film. In all the comedy moments, there is a story in there is a meaning as well. I kind of get that from Dave's review here. The other thing that kind of stood out to me, because I've not seen this film, you know, like most people, I assumed that this was going to be a typical Amy Schumer film, but Dave actually says, you know, she's playing this character, Renee, an insecure young woman with body image issues, and although he doesn't mention it in his review, it comes across as quite a vulnerable character she's playing here. Yeah. So that kind of surprised me in a way. Dave does end the review by saying, you know, it is watchable and charming at times, but don't expect a typical Amy Schumer film. I was quite surprised at that, because I've got to be honest, I did just assume this was going to be another typical Amy Schumer film, but there seems to be a bit more depth to this one, just on Dave's review. The way he's watched this, the way he's understood and what he's taken away from this film as well. It's directed by Abby Cohn and Mark Silverstein, and they're obviously the writers as well. And just joining Amy Schumer, you know, in the cast is Michelle Williams and Emily Ratajkowski, I think you pronounce it.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, we were absolutely destroying this film over the time it was in the box office chat. I'm going to say it was mostly me. But we did have a conversation with fellow movie burner Kevin a couple of weeks back over a barbecue, and turns out he's a big fan of Amy Schumer and her very distinct brand of comedy. I don't think me and you are as big a fans of her. Certainly I'm not a big fan of her comedy, but she's a Marmite comedian. And it intrigues me to see Dave saying that this isn't a typical Amy Schumer film. This may actually tempt me into watching this if it maybe pops up on the TV at some point. I'm not going to give my hard-earned cash over to any film starring Amy Schumer just because I've got a deep dislike for her. I don't know why. I don't know the lady. She's probably a very, very nice person. But yeah, I'm not going to give money to go and watch any of her films in a theatre. That's just me being bluntly honest, which is one of my distinctive traits, blunt honesty. But in terms of this film, I can't really argue with the concept of the film and it tackling this issue of body image and insecurity in today's society. Obviously, it's a society where you have got these models on Instagram photoshopping their physiques to make themselves look perfect, put thigh gaps in and stuff like that, and it's presenting this idea to young women in today's society that that's the way you have to look, and this is why you're getting seen the rise of lots of body eating disorders and stuff like that. So anything that's presenting a positive message about body image and showing that it's okay to be a certain size and weight and stuff like that, not saying Amy Schumer's fat or anything like that, she's clearly not, but anything that presents a positive body image to the young generation of today can only be a good thing. In terms of the writers, I know for a fact that they have been involved in numerous films of this ilk, the likes of How to Be Single, The Vow, He's Just Not That Into You, I Feel Pretty, obviously Never Been Kissed, Valentine's Day, so it's a familiar path that they've taken. They also know how to write a film in this genre, and they're sticking to it. I'm not going to go and watch it, as I said, but listen, by all accounts, it's not that bad a film.
Yeah, John, just picking up on that last, I think it was maybe the last couple of paragraphs down from Dave's review in regards to it's not about turning the tables on a bunch of elitist snobs. A lot of films go down that road where there's got to be a villain, as he said, the so-called beautiful people, which are actually quite likeable as well, you know, according to Dave, but you see it in films like Pretty in Pink as well, you know, that kind of message in there, although that's more based on a sort of class system. This one's more about the sort of exterior of people's looks and stuff like that. Just like I mentioned earlier, that's why I think it reminded me a lot of Shallow Hal. That within the comedy there is a message, and I've got to be honest, you know, after reading Dave's review, it has kind of turned my head a little bit in regards to this film. I'm not going to say I'm going to become Amy Schumer's greatest fan now after this review, but that review has certainly and honestly turned my head to maybe watching this film now. Just moving on though, John, to our final film this week. This is one that you wrote, getting a 9.3 out of 10 on IMDb. Amazing. Just under 2 million people have reviewed this from 1994. This was based on a short story by Stephen King called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. Obviously they shortened that because it was too much of a mouthful, and it is of course the film starring Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman, The Shawshank Redemption. Yeah,
also directed and written by Frank Darabont, as I did mention earlier on, Stephen. I've mentioned in my review that this is such a much beloved film within such a sizable part of the world's population that there's been memes blown up on the internet with people kidding on they've not seen the film before. It's easily within my top 5 films, Stephen. I can make a good argument about it perhaps being the top film in my all-time film list. I just think it's an incredible film. It's obviously mainly about redemption of a few characters. One particular character fails to get redemption, has a heartbreaking moment in the middle of the film, and then 2 clearly do. I don't know what your personal favourite moment in this film is, Stephen, but there's a couple for me. The one that stands out is the beating of the sisters, little ringleader, I believe it's Boggs, obviously at the hands of Captain Hadley. That's an amazing moment. The fresh fish moment at the beginning's up there as well, but the whole sequence that I reference in my review, that's probably my standout and most favourite moment, is the whole bit between Tommy getting killed, Andy saying screw this, I'm leaving, escaping, just the whole sequence of Warden Norton having a complete breakdown, and then just the shots of Captain Hadley getting whisked away and the Warden finally blowing his brains out. That's my favourite moment, just the music and everything coming together. But I'll let you in. What's your favourite moment in this film, Steve? We've all seen it.
Oh, there's so many, John. You know, that iconic scene where Andy comes out of the pipe at the end and holds his hands up into the sky, into the rain, has been recreated so much. I think Spider-Man actually recreated it with Tobey Maguire at some point. Just getting back to, you know, these amazing actors and the characters as well. The actual character development within this film is one of the best pieces of writing I've ever seen. You know, you look at the likes of Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman's chemistry. This was the film that introduced me to both actors. You know, I knew William Sadler as a villain in Die Hard 2. Clancy Brown as well. There's so many. James Whitmore as well, a legendary actor who played the great Brooks Hatlin. You know, as you mentioned, they had such a sad demise, been institutionalised, as Red called it. Gil Bellows as well, Tommy. I thought he's such a cool guy as well, wasn't he? He just looked so cool, you know, that kind of 50s rocker look about him. He was clearly a big Elvis fan. And, you know, just these characters, you know, their names as well, just they're so memorable. The likes of, you know, Haywood and, you know, as we mentioned, Tommy. You've also got Floyd in there as well, you know, one of the gang, you know, even though you might not identify their names, you know what they look like. They've all got a part to play, very small parts, to be honest with you. But then you've got the likes of Bob Gunton playing Warden Norton, and you know, his henchman Captain Hadley as well. Clancy Brown is a fantastic actor. I've spoke about him more recently in these animated films. He seems to be a big comic book fan. He's appeared in the Flash television series as well. He just looks a right cool guy. He just seems to get cooler with age. Morgan Freeman, I think everyone tries to impersonate Morgan's narration, don't they? You know, I just want to see my friend, you know, and keep your eye on the mop, Andy, and all that.
Keep your eye on the mop, Andy.
You know, the scene when they're tarring the roof, I thought that was amazing. The way that Hadley just pulled Andy aside and hung him over the edge of that roof, about to drop him, and the quick talking Andy, you know, managed to change his mind on a few things, and from there the film just kicked on. You know, Andy had a part to play in his life in prison, and the way it's shot as well. I don't know that movie reviewer Chris Stuckman actually made a video. He was on I think it's somewhere, I think it's actually near where he lives, where they filmed this, in Ohio, the actual prison scenes. Just the actual way, you know, the camera right at the start goes right over the prison, you know, and gives you a good idea of how big this place is. And also I think it does the same kind of hovering over the prison when the classical music is played over the tannoy system, and you just see all the inmates all just stopping and listening to this beautiful voice. There's just so many scenes though, John. If I was to say what the one that stood out to me the most was, it was probably that scene when the warden looks at is it like a crochet pattern that's been framed, and I can't remember what it says. It's something, you know, it's a passage.
Judgment cometh.
That's the very one, and he just knows what's happened, and that actual, you know, the wording just fits in with that scene perfectly, and he realises he's just been done up like a kipper.
Yeah, there's so many moments in this film, Stephen, like that, where you get beautiful symmetry lining up. Obviously, as you said, Brooks dying, he carves his name in the wall before he kills himself. Brooks was here, and then later on, so was Red, and you see that with the themes as well, the names of the themes. As you says, Roger Deakins does the cinematography in this film. That moment at the beginning, Stephen, when it flies over, the music, I believe it's the Shawshank prison theme, just incredible, so memorable. Thomas Newman does the score, Stephen, and it's one of the great cinematic scores for me. It's just incredible. The guy's been involved in so many incredible films: American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Meet Joe Black, The Green Mile, The Horse Whisperer. This is a guy that's just synonymous with some absolutely incredible films. I say in my review that there's just something about the great cinematic composers, film composers, the likes of Alan Silvestri, John Williams, Hans Zimmer. You just know their scores and their films just by listening to it. You might not realise they've scored the film, and you listen and you say that's one of their films, and he's very much in the same category. And certainly that moment as you touched upon with the two singers, Marriage of Figaro, that's a great moment as well. Certainly one of my favourite moments in the film is the bit where Andy's continually badgering the state for more books and trying to expand the library. It's such a great story, the writing's incredible, just the way it interconnects all these periphery characters and all the different things going on in the prison, and with the main arcs of Red and Andy obviously trying to seek redemption. I'd say that in my review as well, Stephen. It feels lived in. There's something about this film that just attracts you in right away. The visuals, the combination of the visuals, the music, and just all the little things, the sisters and all the memorable moments and things that are going on. It feels like a lived-in universe, much like what George Lucas did with Star Wars. There's something about that attracts me to films. I don't know why, but it's an absolutely iconic film. There's not a bad moment in it. I do say in my review at the end, the only real niggle that I have with it is that modern car popping up at the end when Red's going out to head down to Zihuatanejo to meet Andy. And you talk about memorable moments. That moment when he walks along the beach and the score and everything, it all combines the visuals of the Pacific. It's just a fantastic film. It's up there for me. It's probably one of the greatest films ever made. An absolute travesty that never get recognised at the Oscars. Don't know what the hell they were smoking that year, but you do tend to find the best films don't get recognised.
Yeah, I mean, I can take myself back to that time, John, when I don't recall it being in a cinema. I don't know if it was down to the marketing of the film or not. You know, the title of the film isn't exactly enticing. When you see other films that were out round about time, like the Forrest Gumps, etc., starring more prominent actors at that point. As I said, this was my introduction to Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman, and you know, I've watched them in more films than I can count now, based on their performances in this film. You know, the other scene that really stands out to me is when the warden throws the stone through the poster as well. Just that sound, you know, it's the echo of that stone rattling around in that tunnel. Because it's not just him. If you remember watching this for the first time, it was such a surprise what happened. I don't know about you, but I thought at first Andy did commit suicide. Yeah. I thought he'd done himself in. I thought he'd had enough. He knew there was no way out. Basically, he was the warden's bitch at this point, you know, and just to see how he managed to pull this off, it was one of the very rare sequences in the film that has a kind of a flashback to explain to the audience how he went about doing this. And, you know, coupled with Morgan Freeman's narration, you know, just about the time of Tommy's death, Andy had enough. Yeah. This was the point when it all started. He started to put his plan together. I know that he carved his name out, and this is, you know, being a sort of rockhound, I think he's called. Yeah. He knew the substance of the bricks and mortar that held up this prison. He knew how to penetrate it. He knew how long it would take to tunnel through. You know, it was just luckily that he was at the end cell, because that would have been a bit awkward trying to go through everybody's cell in the middle of the night, you know. But no, it's just a great piece of storytelling, and it's amazing to think this was all based on a short story by Stephen King. It wasn't even one of his main novels. It wasn't even one of the well-known ones. But it's just such a beautifully made film. It's rewatchability as well. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this. This is probably my second most watched film after Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie. I think it is anyway. And as I said, you know, the video release, I think that's where word of mouth got about, and it became such a classic. I'm not even going to say it was a cult classic. This was a widespread classic from its video release.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said, Stephen, and every single count, especially on the rewatchability factor. I think I've watched this film maybe 20-30 times, if not more. It's ridiculous, and it's just because it does draw you in. And just touching on that warden scene, as you mentioned, he tosses it through the Rita Hayworth poster. That brings me on to another moment, another thing I'm going to touch on before we wrap things up. Just the dialogue, there's so many quotable moments. Obviously, fat ass by a nose, him saying, this is a conspiracy, up and vanish like a fart in the wind. Just there's so many great moments. Bob Gunton as well, playing the warden. A thoroughly incredible performance as the antagonist in that film. Obviously a very corrupt man, but he's likeable as well in a way. I don't know why, for such a murderous toad of a man, he's very likeable. But as you said, it's just an absolute classic. It did kind of reach prominence after its video release. It wasn't something that really did have a lot of critical success, but for reasons unknown. And I just came back to what you mentioned previously as well, about it being your introduction to Morgan Freeman and Tim Robbins. Much the same for me. I was a very young boy when this first came out. I probably first watched this in the late 90s. But I had never seen Morgan Freeman or Tim Robbins in a film prior to this. And it turned me on to those guys going forward in my life. And as you says about Hadley, played by William Sadler, he was in Die Hard too. So there's such an incredible cast, very tall cast as well. That was something I said to you, Stephen. So many people over like 6'2" in that film, to the point where William Sadler looks like an absolute midget. What was going on there? But yeah, just incredible story of redemption. The story, just seeing Red coming from being a right institutionalised man, set in his ways, not thinking he could make it out in the hustle and bustle of a then modern society. I believe it was the 60s it was set, or the 50s, to really redeem himself and finding that friendship with Andy that really propelled him on to finding a new zest for life. It was an incredible film, incredible storytelling, the way it all interweaved. And there's just something about it, just a combination of things, the music, the visuals, the acting, the stories, the lived in feel, just makes it such an enjoyable watch. I feel so happy when I see it popping up on the telly, and it just mesmerises me. You says it yourself. It came on the other night on the TV, and you had to pull yourself away during an ad break, because you just sit down and watch it no matter the time in the day. But I've not got much more to add, and that just brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Movie Burner Blog Rundown, where we break down all the latest films on the Movie Burner Blog at movieburnerentertainment.org. We'd just like to thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week to do it all again.
Remember guys, if you enjoyed that episode, then do hit that like button, comment below, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you want to follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Movie Burner Entertainment, then we can be found on Twitter and Facebook at Movie Burners. You can also listen to us on Google Play and iTunes at the Movie Burner Podcast. And last but not least, if you want to access all the latest written reviews and the occasional article, then that can be found on our website at movieburnerentertainment.org. Until the next time, goodbye.